Okay, welcome and welcome. And we're going to start on our backs. We're doing a balance practice. So we're going to explore balance in a lot of different positions. So beginning on your back. And just allow yourself to unfold and unwind and let gravity take charge here. Let gravity hold you and support you. And don't try to change anything. So Shavasana shape. And then close your eyes. Take a couple rounds of breath. And then just notice. Starting with your head. Notice whether the back of your skull is centered on the floor. Or are you turned to one side or the other? You don't have to change anything. Just right now, just notice. And then go down to your shoulders. Notice if one shoulder kind of stands up more than the other. Move out your arms. So the back of your hands are now resting on the floor. Notice if your hands are evenly resting on the floor. Move down your back. Do you feel right side as heavy as left side? Is there a little imbalance there? Move to your hips. Notice how your hips rest on the floor. And then down your legs. Notice now your feet. For me, this is the biggest change, the biggest imbalance in my body. My one foot splays out much more to the outside than the other. So my heels, one heel is pretty centered, but my other heel is not very centered. This is my body signature. And I couldn't tell you all the reasons why, but the foot that falls out to the side more, that side of my body, probably from my hip down, has either overly tight or overly loose. It's weak in some way. So just noticing, and then we're going to come back to this later on. Great. So now soles of the feet to the floor, resting hands wherever is comfortable. Just take a few rounds of pelvic tilt just to feel into your pelvis, your hips, finding some evenness in the hips, low back, and dual purpose, warming up the low back. And then with your feet wide, windshield wiper the knees back and forth. So we'll explore balance by just becoming aware of balance or imbalance in our bodies. And then we'll play with some balance on the floor. We'll also prepare some of our body that's necessary for balance, like the core. And then we'll move to sitting, we'll move to hands and knees, we'll finally end up standing. But it's important, I think, to realize that balancing postures, it's not just about standing in a balancing posture. There's lots of ways we can explore balance and play with balance. Good. So now once you've done, 6 or 7 rounds to each side, bring your knees back up towards the ceiling And again, find an even resting on your hips. And then with your arms in the robot position, just press up, just slightly press up and lower down. And dual purpose again. So warming up the spine by rolling down one vertebra at a time, but also when you land, notice if when you land, your pelvis, your hips are pretty even, or do you land over to one side? And you roll this down and land with hips pretty even. Then take your awareness to your hips when you're lifted. And without looking, maybe first without looking, is one hip higher than the other, or is it pretty balanced? You don't have to take your hips very high to notice this. And then maybe you can gaze down and see if one hip is higher than the other, and just attempt to balance right and left. Again, we're just dual purposing here. So we're getting that nice spinal undulation as we press up and come down, but we're also noticing what's happening in our hips. Good. And then the next time you land, just take your legs long. And now just rock your feet. So your heels, make sure your heels are pretty centered. And then toes and feet move back and forth in like a pushing, pulling, and just see if you can get a little rock all the way through your body, all the way through your body. So push, pull, just a little rocking. Yep. So just loosening up the fascial network here. Okay, and then you can stop that action and now lift your knees slightly and let them drop to the floor. Lift your knees slightly and then let them drop to the floor, and then just speed that up a little bit. Good. Now, just release any effort now for a couple of breaths in the Shavasana shape. Great. So let's go to the core now. So if you have a block, you want to grab your block and squeeze the block, probably on the narrowest setting between your legs. Okay, and then bring your toes back towards your shins. Now, when I squeeze the block, notice that fires up the inner leg. So those of us with, when we're talking about balancing energy, those of us with the more kapha energy, the more relaxed, settled, you definitely want a best friend that's kapha. We want to pull the energy up from the arches of our feet. We're very grounded if we're kapha, so we want to move the energy up the body. So notice how when you squeeze the block between your thighs, that is helpful in really turning on the inner thigh. And that's helpful to move the energy from this very grounded energy up through the body. So now squeezing the block, you can cross your arms over your chest, or you can take hands behind your head, and let's exhale and bring knees and arms together. Inhale, come back. So little crunchies. We'll do about 20 crunchies here. Feel free to change the hand position if especially if your neck, you tend to get strained in the neck. You can take your hands behind your head. Good. So we're just getting the core ready to do some work. Good. You can let that go now and bring the soles of your feet back to the floor. Move the block out of the way and just rest your knees together. And as each sort of place we land, just notice, does this feel balanced to me? Does this feel balanced to me? Great. Okay, now we're going to work the feet a little bit. So you take your legs up into the air. And this could be, this could be, you don't need to make this a forward fold. You just want your feet up in the air for this. Now, if that's difficult, you can roll up and do the same thing, sort of sitting with one leg over the other, but feet are up in the air. Okay. Now, pull toes back towards shins and then extend. So just flex and extend at your ankles. So especially when we're doing standing balancing, the feet are super important. So we'll flex and extend. And then bring the feet kind of neutral, turn soles in towards one another, inversion, and then soles away, eversion. And you might notice, as I am noticing as I'm looking at my feet, one foot turns out way easier than the other. So I have some ankle I have some stoppage somewhere there. Good. Then rotate the feet clockwise. Okay, if you get a little follow through into the hips. Rotate the feet counterclockwise. And come back to center. And now rotate the feet away from each other. So they're going in opposite directions. And then reverse that. Okay, take soles of the feet back to the floor. Rest the knees together or take the legs long and let your knees just bounce up and down. Just release a little, any tension there that you got built up from that little activity. You can try one leg at a time, alternating back and forth, and then let the feet move back and forth like windshield wipers. Really feel the spaciousness there in your ankles. Okay, then last little thing. So feet back up. All right. So pull your toes back towards your shins. Press through your big toe mounds. So the big toe mounds are pressing towards the ceiling, but the toes are still pulling back towards your shins. Now stretch all your toes long. And then flex at your ankles again. Pull toes back towards shins. Press through the big toe mounds. Then reach the toes long. One more time. Flex the ankles. Press the big toe mounds. Reach the toes. Great. Then we'll come back down. Take your legs long again and bounce the knees. Bounce the knees. Good. You could rock your hips back and forth, but let's really try to get some symmetry here. Okay, the first time we were just noticing, but now as you notice, Maybe if one shoulder sticks up a little higher, you want to tuck that shoulder blade underneath a little bit more. So find some good symmetry. So now you're in Tadasana with the toes pointing up towards the ceiling and the feet, as if you were standing on the wall. Cool. All right, now take the right knee and slide it up towards your shoulder, towards your side waist, and then slide it over and put your right foot against your inner left thigh in Vrksasana, tree pose. And if it doesn't make it up to the thigh, it's fine. You could even go to your knee. Turn my angle just a little bit. You're not going to hurt yourself lying on the floor here, but we want to find Vrksasana on the floor. And when we're on the floor, and the floor is a prop for us, our hips will stay pretty level, right? It's different than when we're standing up, because we tend to get, a lot of us will have uneven hips when we're standing. Now, just press your foot into your leg slightly and your leg back into your foot slightly, and then take a couple rounds of breath. So breathing is super important for balancing. When we hold our breath or suspend the breath or force the breath, we find ourselves falling out of balance. So practice the breath here on the ground. All right, then you can release that. Bounce your heel, bounce your knees. Okay, find Tadasana again, and then slide the left foot up to the inside of the right leg. Is this side easier, harder? We know that Vrksasana isn't just about balance. There's also flexibility in the hips involved. And so maybe this side feels different. It probably does. Let's take 3 rounds of breath here. And you might even take your hands now to heart center, as if you were standing doing this pose. And even here is one shoulder lifted more than the other. I caught myself there. Find that balance if you can. Great. Then you can release your hands down to your sides, release your legs, press through one heel, reach the same arm, press through the other heel, reach that arm, press through, go back and forth just a little bit here, just finding a nice balance, right to left. Dual purpose, we're also opening the side ribs. Great, good. Then we're going to roll onto our right side. I don't have quite enough room, so I'm going to bend my elbow, and I'm going to rest on my bicep here, and for the most part, I'm going to try to line up my outstretched bottom arm or my bent arm. I'm going to line it up with my body. So Anatasana. Okay, and now for balance here, we really have to engage the core. So pull the bottom side waist away from the floor and press the bottom foot into the floor. Find this first. And then you could lift the top leg into Tadasana. So the feet are spread slightly and you're in the Tadasana shape. And then you can use your top hand in front of you to balance to begin with. We'll bend the top leg and set that foot in Vrksasana. Now, whatever you do with your top hand is up to you. You could bring it at your waist, bring it to heart center, lift it straight up. But just feel for this Vrksasana here. Hips are level. And you're pressing your foot into your leg and you're pulling back. Sort of almost like pulling the bottom leg up, the seam of the leg into the foot. And find a nice balance here. For 3, 2, 1. Good. Then we'll scoot around to the other side. Again, if you have the room to take your bottom arm long, if you don't, like I do not, I'm just going to bend my bottom arm, rest on my bicep, and try to keep that elbow pointing in the same direction as the rest of my body. So I'm like a pencil here. Stack my feet and use my obliques, pulling up the side waist away from the floor, finding a nice balanced Anatasana. And I can lift the top leg, toes are back towards shins. And maybe this side feels different. Maybe you don't need to use the top hand to balance, but if you do, just set it on the floor in front of you, bend through the top leg and come into Vrksasana. And the top arm could stack, and come to heart center, or just rest on your hip. So if we were to turn the camera, right, if I were to turn my whole computer here, I would be standing in Vrksasana with hips level, pressing my foot into my thigh or my calf. It's okay to have it on the knee when we're here in the sideline against the floor. And you can feel the work in your hip, right? Good. And then from here, just stretch your legs back out long, roll back onto your back, and shake your knees or let your knees bounce up and down. Maybe go back and forth if that feels better. Can you relax your feet now? Relax your feet. Okay, and then bend your knees once again and press up into bridge and draw your knees away from your hips. So really try to lengthen the knees away from the hips to get a little opening or stretch in the top of the legs, the front of the legs. Just a little counter to what we just did. Great. And then slowly roll down one vertebra at a time. Good. Okay. Roll to one side, press yourself up, and let's come right up to a seat. Sukhasana. And here, just moving from right sit bone to left sit bone, find an even sitting. And then rock forward, rock back, or do a little cat-cow so that you feel yourself moving forward and backward on your sit bones, and then find right in the middle. Right in the middle. So as even sitting as possible. And now the other thing we practice a lot in our yoga, off and on the mat, of course, is can I have the right amount of effort with the right amount of ease? So find effort and ease in your seat. Now from here, we're going to take the hands behind the head and point the elbows up towards the ceiling. And now lengthen one side, lengthen the other side. See if you can get an even lengthening through both sides of your body. Chin is back and in and gazes forward. Then from here, you can straighten your arms. Palms are facing one another. And again, notice if you got one shoulder hiked up, right? See if you can have an even lifting through your side waist. Now, for those of us who have a lot of pitta energy, the balance for us is getting all the energy to move from the belly, the fire of the belly, out into the heart space. And then once we've got it lifted, we bring it out through the hands. Don't know if I have room here. I do. Out through the hands, the fingertips. Widen your pelvis. Go for widening the pelvis. Good. All right. And from here, hands back to our lap. Just roll your shoulders up, down, and back. Okay. And now let's feel for balancing the head. So you're not looking in a mirror, but can you feel for your head being balanced right to left and front to back? And draw your chin back in towards chin back. Okay, most of our current lifestyle makes us have a little bit of forward head. So chin back, right? We spend a lot of time on our devices. Chin back, and then ear to shoulder, one direction, back through center, ear to shoulder, opposite direction. And just move that back and forth a few times. Keeping the chin pulled back like you're giving yourself a double chin. And then you can smooth it out by coming through center, one side to the other side. Take a full circle if it doesn't bother your neck to do so, but keep the back of your neck long. Change directions. And then finally coming back to center. You can close your eyes and just feel for stacking your head right over the rest of your spine and pulling down through the spine to the tailbone, grounded through your sit bones, so you're balanced in your seat. All right, you can let that intentional sitting go. We'll come to hands and knees now. Come to hands and knees. And just take a few rounds of cat-cow. So again, we're part of the work we do, we're part of the practice here in our yoga asana is coming back into balance. Okay. Now we're going to warm up the rest of the lower leg. So we'll take the left foot out, turn toes under, and pulse here and feel this in your calf. And you can pulse the heel. As you pulse, take your heel to the outside, then back to center, and then to the inside. Okay, and then same thing with the right leg. Turn the toes under and pulse. And then take your heel in one direction. Take your heel in the opposite direction. Maybe hold. And then set your knees back down, turn your toes under, and either bring your hips back to your heels with hands forward. If it feels okay to come to your thighs, come to your thighs. If you can sit all the way back onto your heels, you could also have a block here. All right, just opening the bottoms of the feet. So the feet, the lower legs, super important in standing balancing. And if you think about really all the things we do, walking, hiking, skating, I mean, we're always really working balance, standing balance, you know, until we stop doing those things. So super important to keep the feet open. Okay, just for 3 more rounds of breath here. And then you can come forward, take the soles of your feet or the tops of your feet to the floor and just release some of that tension. Good. And then from here, let's do the cow pose again. Just figure out my space here. Do the cow pose again, and then turn toes under and press up and back to downward facing dog. Great. And you can pump through your legs here. And walk your feet up to your hands, bend through your knees, and stand up into Tadasana. Just need to change my camera angle a bit. Okay. So now it would be helpful if you had a chair that you could use. And if you didn't have a chair, a piece of furniture is fine. I have a piece of furniture in my room that I can use just to help with my balance. I'm going to use the chair so I can be a little closer to the camera. You could also use some wall space if you had some wall space. Okay. And I'm going to use the chair in this orientation to start. So I've got the seat of the chair. This could be, if it's a permanent piece of furniture, it's fine. It'll work just as well. And I'm just going to bring my right foot on top of the seat and find my balance here. That's it. And then I'm going to turn that hip out, turn that knee out. Okay. And you might have to play with the height. Like this chair is pretty good height for me. Most of us would be in the range with a sort of a normal height chair, and unless we're super tall or super short, I think this will work for most people. And then you can release that. And then other side, I'm just going to bring my foot up onto the chair first. But you could certainly do it with something lower. Okay. And then I'm going to turn the knee out. And this is what we do in Vrksasana, right? In tree pose. Good. And then I'm going to release that. Okay. And then I'm going to use the chair just to get oriented with my balance. So we have the seat of the chair in front of me, and I'm going to take my weight into my right foot, and I'm going to lift my left leg, take my left foot with my left hand. And I can raise this right hand if I have the space. If I don't have the space, I'm just going to tip and touch the chair and come back up. And tip and touch the chair and come back up. And I'll just turn my chair around here. So this could be I could be using the back of the chair as well. I'm just starting to feel into dynamic balance. Could be the back of a permanent piece of furniture, could be your kitchen counter or your kitchen table. Okay, I'm just feeling into the beginning of my balancing, dynamic balancing. Whoop. All right. If you want to take it a little further, you can go down to a block or go down to the floor, reaching down and standing back up. Good. Then we'll take the other side. Maybe your other side's a little different. Maybe today your other side's different. Find myself kind of spiraling a little bit or rotating a little bit as I do this on this side. I'm not sure why. It's interesting. You know, 4 or 5 times on each side should be good. Good. And then we'll come back to Tadasana, and then just bounce your heels. Just lightly bounce your heels. Kind of releasing any stickiness in the fascial system. Okay. Good. So now let's use the chair, or options. Wall space would work for this. I do not have a flat wall here in this place I'm in. A piece of furniture, I can show you this from the back side. You'll be looking at my back side. We're going to go into, I'll show it facing you first. We're going to go into Warrior 3. So I'm going to have my chair. And I have my hands on the seat of the chair, but you could use the back of the chair as well. So I'm a little more upright here. I could have my forearms on the piece of furniture. And then I bring my right foot towards center slightly, bend that knee and inhale the left leg out. And then I'm going to attempt here to have my hips be level. Okay. So hips are level. Both legs are in Tadasana. Okay. So I'm going to just let you stay there. I'm just going to walk over to this other piece of furniture so I can show. I could have my hands out in front. I've been through the standing leg. I lift the back leg. I want my hips to be level and my feet are in Tadasana feet. Okay. All right, release. And then heels, bounce the heels. Bounce the heels, bounce the heels, bounce the heels. Shake out the legs. And then we'll find the other side. And again, I'm going now to my left side, so I bring my left foot into center slightly, bend through that standing leg, lift the back leg, and get my hips as level as possible as I press my back leg into the imaginary wall. So both legs are in Tadasana. Both legs are in Tadasana. Draw the shoulders down the back. Back of the neck is long, and you're just looking right down to the floor or to the wall, back of your couch for 3, 2, 1. Release. Standing back into Tadasana and bounce the heels. Let the arms go as well. Kind of shake it all out. Okay, shake it all out. Good. Okay, so now let's look at, let's use the chair once again, and we'll go to our Vikasana. So a couple different ways we can do this. I can use the chair, the back of the chair, right? Certainly. Find my weight in one foot and bring my opposite foot up it's a little bit hard to see when I put the chair in front of me, but opposite foot up, and I'm using the chair for balance. I could use the chair to the side. Use the side of the chair. Okay. Or I could use the chair, use the seat of the chair, find the seat of the chair. Maybe I have some wall space in front of me to use as well, and then find my Vrksasana. So I come up like we started with my foot on the chair, and then I rotate the externally with my thigh. I come into my Vrksasana. I've got my wall space here to help me, and maybe to bring my hands away then from the wall. Right, so being creative with our props here, finding Vrksasana, standing tree pose. Now remember where we were on the floor. Stay as long as you can. Remember where we were on the floor. We're breathing, nice steady breath. We're lifting energy up through the legs, the feet and the legs, and we're pressing the standing foot against we're pressing the raised foot against the standing leg. Good. Okay, come out of that side and then bounce your heels. Okay, and then let's find the other side. So either using the chair in the side position or in front of you, using the wall space, put your weight into your opposite foot and then take your raised foot against standing leg calf or up into your thigh. Pressing those two together, lift from the arches up. Feel for even hips. So the tendency is to lift the hip of the raised leg. So when that happens, you can try bringing your leg forward and see if you can get your hips to be level. And breathing steady for 3, 2, 1, release. Good. And bounce your heels. Bounce your heels, let your body shake, walk around in your space, let your legs be loose and relaxed. Okay. Okay, and now we're going to try working with Ardha Chandrasana with the chair. So I'm going to use the chair, and this could be the back of a piece of furniture that's permanent, or, you know, if you have this little fancy portable chair like I have. So we'll take the right foot forward and the left foot back in kind of a warrior one pose. Okay. So you might have to play with the spacing from your piece of furniture, your chair. But I'm going to get my weight onto my front foot, which is my right foot. And then I'll bring my hand to the chair as I lift my back leg and turn and stack my hips. I want the back of my neck to stay long. Now, you might have your hand on something higher, which is fine. I find that a little awkward there. So I find the seat of the chair. You could come to your forearm on the seat of your chair. That feels pretty balanced. And top legs in Tadasana, standing legs in Tadasana. Work the hip, the top hip. Okay, to come out, bend through the standing leg, turn your gaze, take both hands to your chair. You can come through warrior 3, then bend the front leg and step your foot back, warrior 1. Let's do that all again on this one side. So we start in the warrior 1, and now you should have the right amount of space from your prop. You kind of lean or tilt forward as you come to your hand or your forearm with that front hand. And then as you straighten the front leg, lift the back leg. Use your other hand to help you get settled. And then hand to hip. Strong standing leg, equally strong lifted leg. Breathing here. Really taking your time to find a nice breath. And then you can take your top arm back to the piece of furniture, your prop, whatever. If you're doing it on the floor, great. With a block, that's great. Both hands turn to warrior 3. Get your hips level as possible, and then bend through the standing leg. Step your back foot back, warrior 1. There it is, good work. Come back to Tadasana and bounce your heels. Bounce your heels, bounce your heels. Okay, we're gonna go to the other side. Okay, bounce your heels. So just gonna move away from my tilted ceiling here. So again, find warrior 1, left foot forward. As you might have to play around with the spacing. As you come forward onto that foot, front knee is bent. Find the chair, the back of the couch, whatever. Take your other hand to help. And as you straighten the front leg, lift the back leg. Then begin to turn and stack. And maybe both hands stay on the prop. And maybe you can come free the top hand onto the hip. Then the top hand comes back to the chair, and we rotate the hips now. So now the hips, both hip pointers are facing forward, lifting the back leg in warrior 3. Then bend through the standing leg, set your back foot back down to the floor, and come back to warrior 1 with hands on hips. We'll do that all again on this side. So getting to know what you need and using the prop. Again, you might not be using the prop. Chair might not be there, in which case you got the block to the floor. I would connect with something instead of just hanging out in space though. So as you lean forward, you can bring both hands to the chair. You're going to have to lift the back leg and turn open so you could bring the top hand up to the back of the chair here. And then right here, you could stay right here. Doesn't feel too awkward. You can bring your forearm down to the chair. You might even have a situation where you could put your back foot against a wall, section of wall, right into the wall. I have a slanted wall here, but I'm finding if I take the outside edge of my foot and park it there, that feels pretty nice. You could bring the top arm up and stack your shoulders. Now you feel the lower legs working, feel the feet working in the standing leg. That's what we prepared for. Great. And then you're going to sweep the top arm back down. Square your hips up to the floor. Keep the back leg lifted. So hips are now even as possible. And you're pressing down with the standing leg and pressing out with the lifted leg. And then bend through the front knee, set your back foot down, come back to warrior one. Step your feet together, Tadasana, and bounce your heels. Bounce your heels, bounce your heels, shake your legs, walk around in your space. Good. Now, let's do a little bit of a flow as we transition to the floor. So finding Tadasana. We'll inhale the arms overhead and take a bow, finding the floor with your hands, and walk yourself forward into downward facing dog. Inhale, drop your knees, come to cow. Exhale, round your back, set your hips back towards child's pose. Inhale, back to cow. Exhale, turn toes under, press up and back, downward facing dog. Inhale, walk your feet up towards your hands, bend your knees, press yourself up to Tadasana. Take your right foot forward and your left foot back, find warrior one. Good. Inhale, just lean forward and lift your back leg any amount. Exhale, step your foot back, come back to warrior one, hands on hips. Inhale here. Exhale, open up your stance and come to warrior two. Inhale, straighten the front leg, and exhale, tilt towards triangle. Take your front hand to your shin, top arm stacked. Now inhale, bend through your front knee. Sorry, I should have said to have a block, but hopefully you've got a block here handy. So now you bend through the front knee and walk your block out and forward of your front leg and come into any expression of Ardha Chandrasana. So maybe you just lift the back leg partially. Maybe you can find the whole thing. Lifting the back leg, resting your hand on your block, both legs in Tadasana. And then bend through your front knee, turn your gaze to the floor, turn your hips towards the floor, and step back into warrior one, hands on hips. Inhale, step your feet together, Tadasana, and bounce your heels. Inhale, sweep the arms up, and exhale, fold, come into the floor with your hands and come to downward facing dog. Inhale, drop your knees, come to cow. Exhale, round your back, reach your hips back, child's pose. Inhale, come to cow. Exhale, turn toes under, press up and back, downward facing dog. Walk your feet up towards your hands. Bend your knees, press up, Tadasana. Left foot forward, right foot back, warrior one. Inhale. Exhale, open your back foot out and come into warrior two. Oops, I skipped something. Inhale, straighten the front arms, straighten the front leg, reach up with the front arm and tilt into Trikonasana. We'll get it. Now you've got your block there. Hopefully we're going to try the left side. So we'll turn the back foot, bend the front leg, and start to lean forward so you can put your block to the floor, 10 inches or so in front of your front foot and to the outside. And then lift your back leg as you rest your left hand on your block. Open the hips. Stack the arms. Breathe. Nice and deep. Good. Bend through the front knee. Set your foot down. Come back, warrior one. And then inhale, step the feet together, Tadasana. Bounce the heels. Let the arms shake. Good. Inhale, sweep both arms up. Exhale, fold. Come back into downward facing dog. Inhale, drop your knees, come to cow. Exhale, round the back, reach the hips back, and sit back on your heels now. Stacking your weight evenly over your hips, so resting hips on heels and sitting evenly in your seat. Good. From here, you might have a blanket for your hip here. You're going to set your hips to one side and your feet to the other, nestling your top foot in your the bottom sole. And I'm just trying to keep some symmetry here. So if you have a blanket, you can slip under that hip. Good, there we go. Inhale to lengthen through your crown, back of the neck is long, and then exhale, take a twist away from your feet. De-rotate the head back to center. And then let everything come back, do a little counter twist. And then we'll come back to the heels. Hips on heels. Slip your blanket over to the other side. Hips in the opposite direction. And heel feet. Over here, you nestle the top of the top leg foot into the sole of the bottom leg foot. And sit up nice and tall, and then exhale, twist. And de-rotate the head, come back to center. And then let everything go, a little counter twist. Come back to sitting on your heels, move your blanket out of the way unless you know that you'll need it for Dandasana. So and then take your feet out, spread your legs. You might want the blanket underneath your hips for Dandasana. I like to really, coach for us to have our hands back here so we keep an arch or at least a neutral spine. We're not rounded over in the Dandasana. And then can you press your heels evenly into the floor, press your legs evenly into the floor. Maybe release your hands right beside you or to your lap, but certainly keep them back here if that allows you to keep the neutral spine. Sit up nice and tall. Take the back of your skull up. So that means pulling the chin in slightly. Release shoulder tops down. So I have the advantage of looking at myself. So I gazed up and I was like, oh, you got one shoulder up. Find the balance. If you're on a prop, slide yourself forward so that you can remove the prop over to the side, the blanket over to the side. And then bend your knees and slowly roll yourself down, all the way back down to the floor. Good. Now when you're back down to the floor, arms to your sides, feet wide, come back to the windshield wipers. Moving slowly back and forth. And then you could bring your knees into your chest, crossing the ankles. Allow your back body to really spread wide. Feeling some release here. Tuck chin in. If that's not doing it for you, you could try doing a few, just a few rolling dynamic bridge movements. We're just winding down before Shavasana. And then once you release from the Apanasana or the dynamic bridge, slowly take your legs long. And notice in this Shavasana, if it's a little different, are you a little bit more balanced? And once you notice, then you can go ahead and correct or adjust. I'll say adjust is a better word. So can you get both shoulder blades to touch the floor in their entirety? Feel for your hips being even and the center of your heels touching the floor. So once the center of your heels are touching the floor, go ahead and let your feet flop out. And then the back of your skull, find the right in the middle, back of your skull. And it's almost like you're getting an adjustment from a teacher in a live class, right? So you want to stretch the back of your neck long. You could even use your hand to do that. And then set the center of your skull, the back of your skull down on the floor. There we go. Now let gravity have you. Let gravity support you. And it might feel awkward at first to make some of those adjustments because our bodies want to do what they've always done, right? So let's see if we can rest in this new arrangement. Eyes are closed. So moving completely to internal sensibilities. And softening your hips, softening your hands, softening the spaces around your eyes. Between your brow. Release your jaw and toggle right to left, releasing any tension in the jaw. Make sure your teeth are not touching, lips just barely touching. Ah. How is it now? Notice the pulsation, vibration, and sensation through your body and your hands, maybe in your upper chest, legs, feet. And you can stay as long as you want. One of the ways we find good balance as active people is to not skip Shavasana. Stay in your Shavasana as long as you want. You can roll to one side whenever you're ready. Pressing up to your seat and bringing hands together in front of heart center. Noticing here the evenness, the fingertips touching, the evenness of our elbows. Yeah. Inhale through the nostrils, open mouth, exhale. And we'll inhale to an Om. 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 Namaste. Have a great, wonderful, balanced day.